Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at what is possibly one of the best value Micro-ATX cases with an absolute ton of airflow on the market here in the UK at the moment. This is Kolink's Citadel Mesh. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we'll be taking a look at Kolink Citadel Mesh. This is a extremely competitively priced Micro-ATX chassis for those of you with an eye for a bargain and also those of you wanting a little bit of extra airflow. As you can quite easily see, and obviously from the name itself, it's got a lot of mesh on the front, which aids a lot of airflow. Now the rest of the case is actually really well perforated, so it's going to let airflow very nicely in pretty much all directions, from the top, from the back, from the front, and obviously underneath as well for ventilating PSUs, etc, etc. Now some of you may have already seen the review I did on the RGB version of this. If you haven't already and you do want a bit of RGB in your life, then you can click on the link up here and you can check out the RGB version. Of course, if you wanted to, you can add RGB components to this at a later date, but this is designed more for the purists who just want a simple chassis with loads of airflow at a very good price, and it does that particularly well. So in today's video we'll go through, do a little bit of a teardown, go through some of the options, some of the specifications, some of the pros, and obviously some of the cons as well, and then you can make up your own minds at the end of the video whether or not this is going to be the case for your next build. So let's start off with some of the specifications and dimensions of this particularly compact Micro-ATX case. Fortunately, it has got a little bit of extra width to it, so this does aid things like larger fans and also radiators in the top section without having to be overly tall. Now you can actually put in here a CPU cooler of anywhere up to 190mm in height, which is absolutely huge. You can also put graphics cards with a length of up to 345mm. That is if you're not putting a radiator in the front section. And you can also put power supplies in of up to 200mm in length. So pretty flexible in those regards. So we'll do a quick tour now of the case and we'll go through and then we'll do a gradual teardown so you can see insides and the flexibility for mounting options. So we'll start at the front, which is pretty traditional. So in this front section, as you can see, we've got this really nice mesh front panel. Relatively easy to remove. This one was on there particularly tight. There is a grab handle on the bottom, so you can just pull the front panel off, which we'll do a little bit later on. You can see you've got this really nice mesh section, which is also down the sides as well. So depending where you're mounting your fans, you are going to get a decent amount of airflow. This also serves as a filter as well. There's no other filtration other than this mesh itself, which for some people is going to be absolutely fine. Obviously, if you're in a particularly dirty environment or dusty, or there's lots of debris, then it is going to accumulate inside. So maybe if you're in that sort of environment, you might want to purchase a separate magnetic filter to go inside. Again, totally optional. Behind the mesh, included as standard from the factory, are two PWM fans, which have got a rotational speed of up to 1200 RPM. And I'm pleased to say they have actually got pass-throughs on them, or piggyback cables, so you can connect up both fans into one header. So if you're using a slightly more compact board, which has less features on it or less headers, you can just use one fan header for two fans, which is quite a nice thing to have. Moving around to the side of the case, you see you've got this nice tempered glass window with a little pull tab on the side for opening it. There is also a magnetic clamp on there, so no screws needed, and it is on this really nice hinge system, which you can remove relatively easily for maintenance purposes, etc, etc. I really like this design, nice and open, and also again, if you're one of those people that likes to tweak your system or just even give it a clean periodically, very easy to actually get into. Taking the side panel off is a relatively straightforward affair. It's just on pin hinges, so all you need to do is to pull it off like that, and that is the panel removed. So again, if you're working on it, then you can work on it relatively easily. Just put the panel somewhere safe and you can carry on doing what you need to do. Looking at the tempered glass side panel, there is a very, very small smoke tint to it. It's not completely clear, but does give a nice smoke tint effect. So taking a look inside further, we can see we've got this nice basement section, which is fully solid on the top, although there are a couple of pass-through holes, which you can just about see there for passing through your HD audio cables, your front I/O cables, USB, etc, etc. Very nice, very easy to use, and also very easy to keep clean due to it being a solid panel. You can just give it a wipe over and that's it, you're done. Something which I'm not overly keen on, but certainly is something you can work with, is the cutout for the power supply unit. Again, being this is a slightly more budget-based case, you may go for a budget-based power supply, but you can, if you want to, get some carbon fiber wrap film, put it over the power supply, and no one will be any of the wiser. There is also a nice little feature if you are planning to add a little bit of RGB. You can put an RGB strip in this section down here, there's a nice gap, and there is a little pass-through port here, so you can run your cables through and have a little bit of RGB bling just to light up this side panel. So let's take a closer look inside. Taking the back panel off is very simple. There's 2 thumb screws. They aren't captive, but okay, it's not a major problem. The back panel comes off very easily and is a completely flat panel, so no weird bulges. And with the back panel out of the way, we can get a better idea of the pass-through on this case. So there's a really big hole in the back there for CPU mounting. You also got pass-throughs at the top as well for your EPS connector and also fan connections. Lots of pass-throughs here for cables, power cables, all that kind of stuff. No problems here whatsoever. It is for Micro-ATX or ITX motherboards only. ATX boards, sadly, this is not for you, but for everyone else, it's going to be absolutely fine. Plenty of room in here, even if you do have one of those slightly wider Micro-ATX boards, which is actually very handy because that is exactly what we'll be putting in here at a later date. A very small criticism, but it is indeed a criticism, is the fact that there isn't a huge amount of room between the top of the motherboard and also where your fans or radiator may be on here. So certainly if you're planning on putting in here a 240mm radiator, do check that your RGB RAM, if you're using RGB RAM, make sure there's sufficient clearance. That could be slightly problematic, but again, if you want to know more, let us know in the comments section below. Moving around to the back of the case, so you can see we've got plenty of room back here for Micro-ATX boards and expansion ports. If you're using a triple slot card, obviously potentially that could be slightly problematic due to the clearance between the actual basement section and the graphics card itself, trying to get air into that narrow gap. So really this is designed more for twin slot cards, that kind of thing. You can, of course, if you want to, you can mount your GPU in here horizontally, although again, depending on the size of the card, it is going to be pretty close to that glass, so maybe not the best idea. Again, this is pretty much a budget case. I would have thought most people realistically are going to be putting in here something probably maximum like an RTX 3050, that kind of card, so you shouldn't have any issues there at all. Something else to consider, we have got mounting area here for a 120mm fan or even a 140mm fan. If you do put a 140mm fan in here, something to bear in mind is you will not be able to vertically mount your GPU because this eats into the space of where the fan would be. But if you're using a traditional horizontal mount, this isn't going to be a problem at all for 120 or 140mm fans, or potentially even 120 or 140mm radiators. Also at the bottom, you've got your mounting section for your power supply and obviously nice rolled out edges for your I/O shield. Moving around to the back, so we'll take a closer look in here. So again, we've got 2 pass-throughs at the top, which you can get a better idea of. These I would have liked to have been slightly lower down, to be completely honest with you. You may find with some EPS connectors, you might need to disconnect the 4+4s just so you can pass them through. Again, that is going to be power supply dependent. You've also got the pass-through here. Plenty of tie-down points as well for cable management and routing options. Plenty of depth back here, somewhere in the region of about 3/4 of an inch of depth for mounting all your cables. And in the bottom section, we've got a really nice open basement area for that 200mm power supply, should you wish to. And also there is drive mounting options for a pair of 3.5mm drives, which you can put 2 in the caddy in the bottom there. Or of course, if you want to, you can just put a 3.5 on the bottom and a 2.5 on the top. Conversely, if you wanted to, you can actually undo 2 screws on the bottom of the case and remove that caddy in its entirety to give you a bit more room and potentially a little bit more airflow should you need it. Looking at the cabling, very nice cabling, all blacked out as well, which is something I always love to see on any case, to be honest with you. I don't like to see the ketchup and mustard at the end. I think it just takes away from some of that nice neutral black colouring, but yeah, it is what it is. The cables are all nicely flatly done, so that's really good. For the I/O, you've got a bunch here, which is your normal front I/O panel, so power on, reset button, etc. There is actually an additional one which is related to an additional button. So this case obviously is essentially the RGB version minus the RGB. So you do still have that RGB switch button. So if you wanted to go ahead, get yourself an RGB controller in there, you've still got that button so you can control it from the case rather than your motherboard, that kind of thing. You've also got a pair of cables there, one for HD audio and also for USB 2.0. And also we've got the cables coming from those fans at the front. Again, like I said, we have got that PWM connection with a bypass as well, so you can just connect one into the other, and then you can just use one header on your motherboard, or potentially you could daisy chain more fans into it should you wish to. Moving to the bottom of the case, so you can see we've got this pretty much, there's not really a great deal going on here. You've got access to the 2 screws there for the drive caddy, so you can remove that if you want to. Nice feet on here with a little chrome accent, and you've got foam feet on there as well to stop it skating around on surfaces. This is something which is a little bit of a myth. You've got these filters on here, which again, They're not the best, but they certainly do the job. You can, if you want to, remove that and just get a magnetic one. They're easily available on Amazon, eBay, that kind of thing. I'll actually put some links for those in the video description, so if you want to swap that out for a magnetic one, then you certainly can do. Would have been nice to have seen one on a little tray which you could remove, but again, this is a relatively inexpensive case, so I think this is going to be absolutely fine. So now let's take a look at the top section. So we've got our I/O layout here, which is all very nice and very easy to access. So you've got a power button. Next to that, you've got a reset switch, and also you've got the LED switch, which may be slightly redundant on some builds. Nice clicky buttons. I do like those a lot. They're more like the digital buttons rather than being those kind of analog type buttons, but it does the same thing, but they feel quite nice. You've got a USB 3.0 port there next to a headphone jack, microphone jack, USB 2.0, and another USB 3.0. So two USB 3.0s, brilliant, like that a lot. A single USB 2, which is going to be great for some of those older devices which don't like USB 3. I've said this before, there are devices on the market which just simply don't like using USB 3.0. Certain controllers, joysticks, peripherals, microphones, that kind of thing. Sometimes, for some reason, I don't know why, they just don't like it, so it's nice to have a legacy port just in case. You can also as well remove the magnetic filter on the top, which reveals the mounting section for your radiators and fans. You can put in here either two 120mm or two 140mm fans. Radiator wise, again, that's going to come down to the RAM you're using, clearance for your cooler, etc, etc. But certainly there's no reason why you couldn't put a standard fitting 240mm radiator in there and still have a relatively good amount of room due to the amount of offset on this top section. I may have just cut out some of the video segment, so trying to get this front panel off. This one was on particularly hard. It really is an absolute beast to get off, so you do need to use an incredible amount of force to remove this front panel. But once it's off, you can gain access and clean it, etc. As you can see, so ventilated down the sides there, nice open mesh, and down the side there as well. Got a little grab handle on the bottom there. I'm not entirely sure what they've done with this, but it does appear that they've actually changed the plastics they're using from the previous version, which we reviewed. Again, you can check that out up here. The plastic appears to be a slightly more matte finish, like a satin matte finish, and potentially could pick up more marks and that kind of thing. It does feel different. I wouldn't say it's for the worse, I wouldn't say it's for the better, but it does feel different. And it does feel like it's potentially going to pick up more marks and going to be more difficult to clean rather than a slightly more glossy finish. But with that out of the way, we can get access to the fans. So this is included. We've got two of these Kolink fans. Again, I'll put the specs on the screen for you. Both PWM. I think they've got a rotational speed of up to 1200 RPM, so they're going to be nice and quiet and cool. Again, to be included at this price, absolutely brilliant. Can't fault it at all. You can, if you want to, you can remove those in their entirety and replace them with two 140s, should you wish to. So they'll fit in there, two 140s very nicely. You can't put three 120s in here. I have tried, it just doesn't fit. Well, technically they do fit, but you can't get the front panel back on, so yeah, they don't fit. Of course, if you want to, you can remove those two and replace it with a 240mm radiator or 280mm radiator. Again, other things will come into play there, such as clearance, etc. There is a little bit of a snag at this top section where we've got the front I/O panel. Because the USB 3.0 ports do stick down a little bit, that is going to give you a cut-off kind of along here. So if you're planning on putting anything too high in there, you may need to push your radiator down slightly. There is a cutout at the bottom of this panel, but it's not a particularly deep one. So again, if you're having a radiator and you're having it mounted there with the fans, you might want to have to put the fans on the front section and put the radiator behind and just bolt the fans through the chassis into the radiator. Not anything majorly. Realistically, I think this case is more suited towards air cooling than it is water cooling. Of course, it's your case, you can do exactly what you like with it. So there we go, there is a tour of the case. I really like it. I liked it, the previous version, the RGB version, and again, this gives you a lot of flexibility. If you want to throw in a load of RGB components and really light it up, you can do very easily if you've got existing components and you want to transfer it to your new build. I like the fact that you're not tied into any particular ecosystem with this. Literally, it is essentially a blank canvas, and a very nice one at that. Something I do like a lot is the kind of like the barn door on the side. That, for me, is brilliant, especially again, if you're one of those people that likes to tweak with your system, play with things, either, or just keep it clean. It's just really nice to not have to grab a screwdriver and be able to just open up the side panel, get inside, move a cable, put an extra cable tie in, those kinds of things. I really do appreciate that. And it does bend round quite a considerable way as well, so you can bend it right out of the way for doing those maintenance tasks, etc. But yeah, overall, a very, very nice case. I would love for them to be able to do a ATX size version of this. Maybe the Kolink Citadel Mesh XL. Kolink, if you're watching, that is what we would really like to see. I would love to see an XL version of this. A little bit taller, maybe a little bit more room in there for radiators, the option for possibly a 360mm rad in the front and the fans. That would be absolutely amazing. But in terms of Micro-ATX cases, I've gone through a lot of them over the few years, and I've got to say, for the money and the quality and the flexibility, this one pretty much is the winner. It really is. But let me know what you think about this one in the comment section below. I'm blown away by it. The fact that you can now pick them up for less than £40 here in the UK. Superb quality, loads of nice features. Yeah, highly recommended. If I was to give it a star rating, it's got to be a 9 out of 10. It's almost perfect, but just not quite there. So let me know what you think about this one in the comment section below. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.